He was
Most
on the
people see a
trail in
TV
Iowa
star,
not long
a
ago.
charming guy in a flannel shirt, cruising back roads in a white cargo van, pulling rusty gold out of forgotten barns. They see the History Channel logo, the deals, the laughs, the chemistry. What they don't see is the kid who grew up with almost nothing, who spent years pitching a TV show nobody wanted, who quietly watched his marriage fall apart at the same time his best friend of 40 years was spiraling into an addiction he couldn't save him from. They don't see the man who cried outside his own store on the day he had to lock the doors for good. This is not the version of Mike Wolfe they put in the press releases. This is the one that actually happened. Mike Wolfe was born in Joliet, Illinois, the second of 3 children raised by a single mother. Money wasn't just tight, it was a daily reality that shaped everything about how he saw the world. The family eventually settled in Bettendorf, Iowa, and it was there, at around 4 years old, that Mike did something most kids wouldn't think twice about. He started going through the trash. Not out of desperation, out of curiosity. He had an eye for things other people had given up on. Old stickers, broken bicycles, anything with a story left in it. One afternoon, he found a beat-up bike in a neighbor's trash, cleaned it up, and another kid on the block offered him $5 for it. He took the money without hesitating. That was the moment. He didn't know it yet, but that $5 flip was the foundation of everything that would come after. Most kids grow out of phases like that. Mike Wolfe never did. By his early 20s, Wolfe had channeled that same obsession with bikes into competitive cycling, racing at the Cat 4 and Cat 3 level from 1989 through 1998. He even opened 2 different bike shops in Iowa, buying, selling, and repairing vintage bicycles for years. From the outside, it looked like a career, but inside, he already knew it wasn't where he was headed. He closed the shops, loaded up a cargo van, and just started driving. Not aimlessly, with purpose. He was picking full-time now, traveling the back roads of America, hitting flea markets and antique malls, selling what he found to fund the next trip. At his peak, he was putting 60,000 miles a year on that van. No camera crew, no television deal. Just a guy and a cargo van and a sharp eye for things everyone else had walked past. Those years mattered more than most people realize. That's where he built his encyclopedic knowledge of Americana. That's where he learned to read people, negotiate, and earn trust with strangers in 30 seconds. That's where he opened the original antique archaeology store in LeClaire, Iowa, a shop that became something of a landmark long before any TV network knew his name. And here's the part that often gets glossed over. Mike Wolfe pitched American pickers to television networks for nearly 5 years before anyone said yes. 5 years of rejection. 5 years of being told that watching 2 guys dig through barns wasn't a show. When History Channel finally greenlit it, Wolfe had already done the hard part. He'd spent decades becoming the most prepared man in the room. American Pickers premiered in January 2010, and the numbers were immediate and undeniable. As many as 5.4 million viewers tuned in each week during that first season, making it the highest-rated new nonfiction cable program of the year among adults 25 to 54. For a show about 2 guys driving around looking at old junk, that was a jaw-dropping result. The chemistry between Mike and his co-host Frank Fritz wasn't something a casting director cooked up. The two had known each other since junior high school. Decades of shared history translated directly onto the screen, and audiences felt it. It wasn't 2 strangers performing friendship, it was the real thing, or at least it looked that way. The success opened every door at once. The Nashville location of Antique Archaeology opened in 2011. Books followed, including The American Picker's Guide to Picking and a children's title through Macmillan. He signed an endorsement deal with Indian Motorcycle, a brand he'd ridden and loved for years. He launched Restorations, a line of one-of-a-kind furniture and lighting built from reclaimed vintage fixtures. He created Kid Pickers, an online community aimed at young collectors aged 7 to 13. In 2012, CBS even announced it was developing a scripted workplace comedy based on his life. From dumpster diver to cultural icon in under 3 years, by any measure it was a remarkable run, but underneath all of it the cracks were already forming. Long before fame found him, Mike Wolfe had Jody Faith. The two had been together for 18 years before he finally put a ring on it, marrying her on September 7, 2012, in a ceremony at Leiper's Fork, Tennessee. Their daughter Charlie arrived shortly before the wedding, and almost immediately the family faced something that put everything else in perspective. Charlie was born with a cleft palate and lip, requiring reconstructive surgery as an infant. Mike later spoke about the moment they found out, saying they cried when they first heard the news. Charlie came through her surgeries well, and the experience pushed both Mike and Jody toward charitable work, particularly with Operation Smile, an organization that provides reconstructive care for children born with similar conditions around the world. The following year brought another blow. In September 2013, Jody was diagnosed with stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She was a vegan, active, health-conscious by anyone's definition, and still the diagnosis came. She fought through treatment and was declared cancer-free in May 2014. For a time, it seemed like the hard part was behind them. It wasn't. By June 2020, the couple had quietly separated. In November of that same year, Jody filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and stating in court documents that all hopes of reconciliation were exhausted. The settlement, when it was finalized in December 2021, was extensive. Jody walked away with the Nashville home, a North Carolina property, over $5.2 million in cash from the marital estate, $634,000 in alimony, a percentage of ongoing American Pickers royalties, and $2,100 per month in child support. Primary custody of Charlie went to Jody as well, with Mike receiving 135 days per year. Mike said almost nothing publicly about any of it, just kept posting about picking. In early 2020, Frank Fritz stopped showing up to film American Pickers. The official reason given at the time was straightforward. He was recovering from serious back surgery and dealing with complications from Crohn's disease. He'd had 2 metal rods inserted into his spine, over 180 stitches, and the recovery was brutal. He expected to be gone for a short stretch, heal up, and come back. That's not what happened. By 2021, Fritz was speaking to the press with a bitterness that caught fans off guard. He claimed the show had always been tilted toward Wolfe by an overwhelming margin, and that Wolfe was working to bring in his brother Robbie as a permanent replacement. Most strikingly, he said the two hadn't spoken in 2 years, and that Wolfe had never once called to ask how he was doing through the entire ordeal. In July 2021, Wolfe posted on Instagram confirming Fritz would not be returning, framing it warmly, as though they had parted on decent terms. Fritz called the statement exactly what he thought it was. He wasn't quiet about it. What neither of them said publicly at the time was this: Frank Fritz had developed a severe opioid dependency during his recovery from back surgery. The addiction had taken hold during the pandemic, when isolation and pain medication became a devastating combination. Wolfe knew. According to his own account, he and others around Fritz fought hard to help him, but Fritz had to want it for himself, and for a long time he didn't. History Channel fired Fritz in 2021. Wolfe covered for him, keeping the addiction out of the public narrative out of loyalty to a friend of 4 decades. The ratings suffered after Fritz's exit. Fans weren't shy about it. Social media campaigns demanded his return, and new episodes drew noticeably smaller audiences. Wolfe's brother Robbie stepped into a more regular role on the show, which only fueled speculation that Fritz had been pushed out deliberately. Then, in July 2022, Wolfe posted something that changed the tone of the whole story. Frank had suffered a stroke. He was in the hospital. Wolfe asked for prayers and said it wasn't the time for anything else. Not explanations, not settling scores, just prayers. Fritz was placed under emergency conservatorship and moved to a nursing facility in Iowa. For nearly a year, there was silence between them, or so the public believed. Behind the scenes, Wolfe had been trying to reach him for months. Over Memorial Day weekend in 2023, they finally saw each other. A mutual friend arranged it. Fritz had only recently felt well enough for a visit. When the two men sat down together for the first time in years, both of them cried. Wolfe brought up their first appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman back in 2011, how nervous they'd both been, how far they'd come. He told Fritz that nobody could ever replace him. Not Robbie, not anyone. It was the last real conversation they'd have together. On September 30, 2024, Frank Fritz died at the age of 60. The cause was listed as late complications from his stroke, with heart disease and lung disease noted as contributing factors. Wolfe was at his bedside. By his own account, he told Fritz he wasn't angry, that he loved him, and that it was okay to let go, telling him to go find his mom. Wolfe announced the death on Instagram. He wrote about the shared miles, the white cargo van, the places they'd found together that nobody else was looking for. He said he felt blessed to have been there at the end. Life had a way of moving forward whether Mike Wolfe was ready or not. Not long after his divorce became public knowledge, he was spotted with Letitia Klein, a former model, motorcycle racer, entrepreneur, and someone he had quietly known since at least 2018. They went public in August 2021, and for the first time in years, Wolfe seemed genuinely at ease in his personal life. The relationship made sense in a way his first marriage perhaps stopped making sense long before it ended. Klein shared his love for motorcycles, historic preservation, and moving through life without sitting still. She ran for mayor of Cave City, Kentucky in 2022. Wolfe publicly praised her for it. When asked directly about the possibility of another marriage, his answer was immediate: "Oh no, no." He had a teenage daughter, an aging mother, and a lot of ground to reclaim. Marriage wasn't on the list. What did come next surprised even the people who followed him closely. In early 2025, Wolfe stepped in front of a camera for an entirely different reason: his acting debut in the Western film Day of Reckoning, alongside Klein. It was a pivot that nobody saw coming from the guy who'd spent 15 years insisting his only real skill was spotting value in things other people ignored. Then, in April 2025, came the announcement that felt like a genuine ending of something. After nearly 15 years in business, Wolfe was closing the Nashville location of Antique Archaeology for good. He cited a desire to slow down, to get back to Iowa, to be closer to his 81-year-old mother and spend more time with Charlie. He said he wanted to drive roads he'd driven his whole life. On April 26th, he showed up to the store one last time, wearing a flannel shirt and work boots, just like always. Fans who had traveled from across the country were there to meet him. He hugged them, he thanked them, he wiped tears from his eyes more than once. The man who built a career out of giving forgotten things a second chance was now standing in the middle of something he himself was choosing to let go. The Iowa store remains open. American Pickers is still on the air, currently deep into its 27th season. But the Nashville chapter, the one that represented the height of everything he'd built, closed its doors on April 27, 2025. For good, there's something quietly fitting about the full arc of Mike Wolfe's life. He started out pulling discarded things from the trash and asking why nobody else saw what he saw. He spent decades doing exactly that on a national stage, looking at what everyone else had written off and finding the story inside it. And now, in his 60s, he's doing the same thing to his own life, sorting through what stays and what goes. Closing a door that cost him something real to close. Choosing his daughter and his mother and a slower road over the machine he spent 30 years building. The question worth sitting with isn't what Mike Wolfe lost along the way. It's what he decided was still worth keeping.